Hey, what's up everybody? Happy New Year. I wanted to start the year off with a bang, so today we're going to be doing a tutorial that really shows you how to produce in the style of artists like LANY or Fly By Midnight or Jake Scott or even Landon Austin, which is the artist that we're going to be using today. So I'm going to be breaking down the entire production from Landon Austin's new single, Never Lose My Love. And by the end of this video, you should be able to see all of the different elements, big and small, to go into a full production for that kind of ballad meets kind of spacey meets almost 80s inspired kind of indie alternative pop track. So we're going to dive into that, but before we do, you're watching Make Pop Music. My name's Austin. If you like this video, we have videos like this that come out every single Friday, so make sure that you subscribe so you can always see them when they come out. Other than that, if you want to support us after this video, you can head over to makepopmusic.com. We have a ton of stuff over there: samples, presets, MIDI packs, courses. We have a bunch of free content you can download. Go check that out. That's again at makepopmusic.com. Let's dive in so we can look at this production. So when I work with Landon, he typically will send me some kind of work demo that he has that is pretty fleshed out in the terms of what he wants stylistically. So this is the exact demo that I got for Never Lose My Love. This is what he sent me with all of his production, his writing, all of that.
Just pick a star and I will bring it home. Close your eyes and fall into my world.
So we start off with a really minimal verse that is then going to open up to be a little bit more atmospheric and ambient.
Baby, we can jump. Wanna give you all of my life. Hold you to wherever, 'cause you're all mine.
So super big, super pretty. He's loving those kind of 80s brasses that you'd hear in something like a LANY or Fly By Midnight track. So we're going to keep that. And then we're going into the verse 2 here where we're pulling in some drums.
Finding you is just like finding me. All the pages of our memory.
He kind of has a traditional kind of Lin drum, 80s inspired kick and snare. So once we start producing it, we're going to keep that. And then it really just builds up where we're taking the kind of ambience from chorus 1 and putting drums under it. Then we just go into a big like post-chorus right here. And then we have a little bridge that then goes into a final chorus. So it's definitely a solid work demo. We're going to produce a lot from the ground up, but Landon did send me all of his multi-tracks and stems. So if you can see them in these kind of light blue colors, those are all the things from his original production that we kept. And then everything else is new. So let's go ahead and let's just start off with what we did in terms of the different synths, because that's really where we added a bunch. So here's kind of the main synth that Landon was using. Added a little bit of effects modulator just to kind of spice it up. And then we are layering that a ton. So there is a synth layer right here. Because I wanted something that really had a lot of that like top end, but it almost has that music boxy vibe, and I have a kickstart on it. And then we're also kind of layering that up with this brass. You can hear that we have some auto pan kind of alternation happening. And then we also have this reverb that's kind of swelling up with effects modulator as well. And then we're really just layering that with some extra stuff. And we're just kind of opening all of those with ladder filters, and all of that will kind of give me one cohesive synth sound that kind of is inspired by his, but a little bit bigger. And it's little things like that that I think take a production from being a really good writing demo to something that sounds finished and produced. We're going to use a sign pad in here just straight out of our Vital pack. Just playing some chords. Playing those right there. I'm not really pulling up any of the synth VSTs. I have them right here. They're all just disabled. If there's any that you want to know in the comments specifically, let me know. Most of these are from our Lush pack that we just released on Black Friday. So if you're looking for a lot of these synths, they're from Lush, and then I've just kind of modified them. But it's less about what exactly I chose and more so how I chose to layer them. So we have that synth pad, and then we have this thing. Just to add ambience. Again, playing those big suspended chords. And swelling. Then we have this Rev Run pad, also out of Lush. And now with all of that, we start to get this verse that feels so much bigger than we had. Still minimal. I put some of the Sweet Tooth kind of granular loops that we have. So this is just the granular loop 135 and B major, and I have just transposed it -2 semitones and then 10 semitones. So it's going from a low octave to up. And I've just reversed those and printed them. And then that is pretty much it for a lot of the synth bed stuff. Other than that, we just start to kind of layer up elements as we go. And I guess I'll go ahead and show you the vocals for this verse, because that's really the only other thing happening. We have a lead vocal up the middle, and then a left vocal 50% left, and a right vocal 50% right. And these both are in a higher octave. So here's what these sound like.
Just say the word and I will bring you home. Close your eyes and fall into my world. Hand in hand under the water.
And for this vocal mix, he has a pretty solid vocal chain going in. So here's what it sounds like dry.
Just say the word and I will bring you home.
So the main things that I just wanted to do were add a bit of top end and kind of tame some of those low mids, just so it can cut through this really spacey ambient track. So a lot of that is happening in Virtual Mix Rack, where we have some compression, de-essing, and this big boost around like 14K right here is really giving us a ton of that air. And then C4 is doing some kind of lifting of the highs and the high mids as well. And then other than that, it's just a de-esser.
Just say the word and I will bring you home.
Versus
close your eyes and fall into my world.
Much more compressed.
Hand in hand under the water.
Really going to cut through that mix. And then in terms of sends, we just have kind of the usual suspects of our channel. We have a short reverb that is just verb sweet on a room setting, I believe. So for the short reverb, we just have this little guy. It is the small Vox room.
Just say the word and I will bring you home.
Blended into taste. Then we have this long reverb right here, which is vintage verb at 2.29 seconds. And then we have this quarter note delay that we've just kind of tucked in the back and filtered, kind of doing that Abbey Road bandpass technique. And we're using repeater on the tape delay to actually give us those stereo echoes. And then other than that, it's just our vocal parallel widening, which is just the Roland Dimension D. I use this in basically every mix ever, just to add a little bit of stereo width. And that is pretty much the entire vocal mix for everything. The only thing that I added were on these high harmonies. I added this little 910 harmonizer. That's gonna kind of give us that LANY vibe where it adds that really thick chorus.
Just say the word and I will bring you home.
Where it's kind of splitting them.
Close your eyes and fall into my world.
And other than that, that's pretty much it. Like, this is a pretty bare bones kind of vocal production for this verse. And then we just have these delay throws right here. Done them a million times. Basically duplicate the lead vocal track. Throw on a gigantic repeater. Throw on a little bit of black hole to kind of make these super spacey. Nothing crazy. Just because I don't want that much delay and reverb on every single word and phrase, so I'm just using those at the tails, so it can still have that nice big ambient throw, but it's not kind of clouding up the vocal when it needs to be dry and punchy. So that's pretty much it for the first half of the verse. After that, we start to kind of build up the production just a little bit. So we're adding a couple things. We're adding this little eighth note pad. Again, rising with the filter. That's what it sounds like once it's all the way open. So when you're doing really big ambient stuff like this, it really helps if you can use things like automation for volume and for filter to really close things and then open them as it progresses. As you can tell, this verse starts off pretty dark, pretty filtered, and then as it goes up into this chorus, we're gonna really start to kind of let it open up, and that is what allows us to really have something that starts to feel super ambient without just being super minimal and drowned out. So we're adding that. He also had an original stem right here that is just a little pad. If I had to guess, that's probably one of the ambient bells from Omnisphere. Landon, if you watch this, you can correct me in the comments. If I had to guess, it's probably one of those little ARP bells. And then I'm just putting some more like granular swells. And that's just to add texture and interest, just because this is so minimal. This is kind of what it sounds like with everything starting to come in.
Would catch the drops, breaking pieces, I would pick you up, shine a light into the shadows, and when there's nowhere to run, baby.
So the other thing that I have is I have this little drum fill right before we go into that big chorus that has a ton of bass come in. And that's just this little sweet tooth fill right here that I've chopped. And I've just pitched around and kind of resampled it. And it just added this really cool kind of like texture in there. This is something that you would hear in something like Fly By Midnight or Asher Postman or even like Lute, where they're using a lot of this kind of like filtered but still kind of clicky percussion to add these cool little moments. I wanted to do that here.
There's nowhere to run, baby, we can jump. Wanna give you all of my life, hold you for forever.
So now we're getting into the chorus. Big things here are just these risers and hits. So I have a bunch from our Y2K pack, and then I have the cymbal roll from our cymbals pack. Swelling. And it really makes it feel super cinematic. And then other than that, all of the synths kind of keep going. So we still have all of those little kind of ARP brassy synths. And then the main things that we're adding are some higher synths. And that's just gonna bring us a little bit of extra texture on that top end, just so it can start to kind of rise above all of the other atmospheric mid-heavy stuff that we're doing. We also have this massive brass. This is what's really giving a lot of the synth bed, the kind of top end texture and the big sustain. And that is also from our Lush pack. It's just one of the brasses that we have. Maybe the kind of like Oberheim brass. And then we have these Mellotron strings that I just printed straight out of Omnisphere. Again, kind of rising with everything. You can really hear how the tension builds as everything allows itself to open up, get a little bit more expressive. So for all of the synths, all of that's happening. And then Landon also had sent a couple things that we used. So these all came from Landon's kind of original stems. And I really liked that ARP that he had, so I didn't find a need to try to replace it or fix it or tweak it. I literally left it as it was and just added some top end, and that to me felt perfect. Other than that, the only thing that we're really adding is just some bass to kind of give us a big low end. This is one that I haven't even printed out. It is just the Swinger Party out of our Synergy pack for Vital. So if you don't have Vital, it's a free synth. We have a pack for it called Synergy, and this preset is one of my favorites in there. Just taking away some low mids. Other than that, that's really it in terms of like ambient production. Then we just have a couple little like perk things that are happening. Landon had this hi-hat that I just kind of left in there, and then I just supplemented that with this little sweet tooth hat right here. It just adds a little bit of movement and context and kind of keeps the tempo while everything else is big and soaring and kind of spacey. And then for vocals, we just have a lead up the middle and then a lead 95% left, 95% right. Same thing that we were doing on the top harmonies. So basically just a lead vocal chain with a 9/10 harmonizer to give it that kind of LANY inspired chorus effect. And it sounds like this.
There's nowhere to run, baby, we can jump. Wanna give you all of my life, hold you for forever, 'cause you're all mine. Until the end of time, I promise you.
The only other thing that we added was this big vocoder, and this is just using, honestly, the brand new Cubase one that they brought back from Cubase 5. So this is just using the stock vocoder from there. And I've shown how to do vocoders on this channel quite a bit, so I'm not going to go over that. It really is just as simple as like take your vocal track, put a vocoder on it, create a MIDI track that you can use to kind of play the notes that you want, and then you just need to route that as a sidechain input for the vocoder, and then you're pretty much good to go. So that is pretty much it for that big ambient kind of first chorus. Now we are starting to pare it back and pull in some drums so we can have a little bit more punch. So here is what we're going into for the second verse.
My love, finding you is just like finding me. So many pages of our memories.
So for the drums, I am just using basically Groove Agent to load in some samples. We have a little Oliver kick and some Oliver snares. It's basically just like your typical Lin drum stuff, and it sounds like this. And then I'm just layering up a big roomy snare. Other than that, that's it for the verse. And then we do have a bass coming in. It's just a open version of that swinger bass that we had earlier. So I've just kind of automated the filter up just a little bit so it can be a little bit more buzzy. And then other than that, we're going back to essentially the same exact synth that we had for verse 1. We're just adding this little jumpy synth. This is Jump and Filter out of the Lush Pack for Serum, and it sounds crazy. I just wanted that to kind of mirror what the bass was doing, just so we could add a little bit of extra kind of rhythm and movement underneath that drum kind of arrangement that we're pulling in, just so it doesn't feel like there's drums over all of this super ambient stuff. I want it to be drums over ambience, but we still need, we still need some kind of synth to maintain movement. So here's what the second verse sounds like.
Finding you is just like finding me. So many pages of our memories. Like a story, we are timeless.
The other thing that I did for this second verse was the vocal sounded a little bit dry here. So I actually created what could be like a send, but instead I'm just doing this as kind of a copied effects track. So I am essentially taking a copy of that lead vocal and I'm throwing on vocal doubler on this and throwing it at 100%. So it is super, super wide now.
Finding you is just like finding me.
Taking out a bunch of top end.
Many pages of our memories.
And then we're throwing on repeater, and this is just giving us a slapback delay.
Finding you is just like finding me. So many pages of our
You're gonna hear this in so many of those kind of alternative indie pop acts where they kind of have a version of like a chorus echo or a tape echo or a space echo or something like that, where it's giving some slapback, it's giving some chorus, it's giving some delay and reverb, and it sounds really nice tucked under.
Finding you is just like finding me.
Here's without it.
So many pages of our memories.
With it.
Like a story, we are timeless.
It just really helps it kind of sit in the mix and take up a little bit of extra space. Just so too, it feels a little bit bigger and like a progression from verse 1. And then other than that, we're moving into kind of the chorus and the post-chorus. So we'll talk about drums first. We have the same kick and snare happening. We're just adding several different loops. So we're pulling in that top loop that we have from verse, or from the first chorus actually. And then we are pulling in a couple different hi-hat loops. So we've got a real hi-hat loop, we have a programmed hi-hat loop, and then we have this kind of like percussion sample that I found off of Splice. If we were to take out all of those things and just have a live loop and just have our kind of standard drums. Again, kind of taking a note out of that kind of like lute meets Slide by Midnight meets like Asher Postman, where I want a lot of really clicky percussion just to kind of give us that 8th note, 16th note movement, because I feel like that can add a lot to an ambient song like this. Other than that, we're going to a big bass. Same thing we've talked about earlier. We've got a bunch of risers and hits happening. Bunch of stuff from our Y2K pack here, just to kind of give us a little bit of tension and rise. Let's talk about stuff that we added for the synth. So we are just adding this big Oberheim brass out of our Lush pack as well. A little bit more top end on this one compared to this. So everything kind of has its own space, right? Like we're not really doing the same thing twice. We're more so just finding cool things that we could use to add. And then Landon had these synth chords in. I liked where those sat in the mid, so I kind of left them. And now, between the bass and the synths, this is huge. We also have a couple little guitars that Landon had sent over, so they actually have tones printed. So that's what the multi sounded like from Landon. I just wanted to add a little bit of effect stuff. So I'm using the Corey Wong amp, but I've turned off all of the heads, all of the cabs, all of the kind of pre-pedals. And I'm just using the chorus, the delay, and I'm actually not even using delay, just the chorus and the washy reverb. Just wanted to give it some extra space. And then same thing with this kind of like dotted delay guitar. So it sounded like this straight up. But I kind of wanted to do like an edge thing where I have this dotted delay right here. I have a little bit of chorus and a little bit of, actually I'm not using the reverb. So that's it, just chorus and dotted delay. And so those go as well. And now we're just going to basically the biggest vocal production that we have. So it is lead vocal up the middle, lead vocal left, and lead vocal right doing this.
My life, hold you for forever, 'cause you're all mine.
We also have harmonies.
My life, hold you for forever, 'cause you're all mine. Until the end of time, I promise you.
And then we have that big vocoder.
For forever, 'cause you're all mine. Until the end of time, I promise.
Big ass delay throw that's just sidechained to that basically like lead vocal just so it doesn't interact with it. And then that is it really. We'll go into this post chorus where he basically just has like a never lose my love kind of refrain where he just repeats it.
You can never lose my love. You could never lose my love. You could never lose my...
So I wanted some kind of call and response synth to that. So percussion is the same, bass is the same. All of the synths are the same. I'm just adding these 3 layers right here. It's basically just this little lead element that I have a patch for the middle, a patch for the left, and a patch for the right. And it creates this really cool call and response. Other than that, we have an ad lib come in when that repeats.
You can never lose. You can never lose.
And I just put that in a different space with, again, that 910 harmonizer doing the vocal thickener. I have this at like 10% wet. And then I have Decapitator to give it some saturation so it can really pop out in the mids and the high mids. And then I just have kind of like a washy, really mid-heavy concert hall reverb. That's pretty much it on that. And then we go into this little bridge that is basically just kind of like the verse arrangement. And then I've just chosen to do a kind of different vocal process.
I wanna give you all of my life, hold you for forever, 'cause you're all mine. Until the end of time,
So for this, we are just losing that little boom, 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 and we're just going to some of those big brassy pads. I just want a nice big sustain here. I don't want anything that adds a ton of movement. using a lot of that filtering as well. And then the lead vocal here is the kind of main part where we do something a little bit different. So it's the same exact vocal chain until we get to this slapback delay right here. This is just the memory guy program. I'm at like 44 on the left and 95 on the right.
Give you all of my life.
It's really subtle, but it adds a cool little space. And then we have an eighth note delay right here that we're kind of automating up.
Give you all of my life. Hold you for forever, 'cause you're all mine. Until the end of time, I promise you.
So you can see that we're automating that. And then same thing with this reverb. We're kind of automating it up once we get to the end of the phrase.
Will never lose my love.
And that's just going to wash that into the final chorus. Final chorus is the same thing that we have earlier. There are no new additions, actually. Nope, nothing. So we're going into that final chorus. Sounds like this.
Baby, you will never lose my love. You can lay down your worries. Anything you can, I will carry. 'Cause till the end of time, I promise.
Same thing with the ad-libs here. Put them in that 9/10 harmonizer, spread them out.
I will carry.
And threw a long ass washy reverb on this. So it feels really good to me. Everything's working. Other than that, the outro is basically just the synths kind of fading out and filtering out. That is pretty much the entire production and arrangement. As you can see, it sounds pretty different than this demo.
They can take away everything they want from us, but baby, you'll never lose my love.
We went from that to this.
Until the end of time, I promise you, that baby, you will never lose my love. You can lay down your word.
So I'm really happy with what came out. I know Landon was happy with it. I don't think we really did any revisions for this. It was a super quick process. The only thing that I'll show you is the master bus. Here's what the final sounded like before there was any mix bus or master bus processing. So this is just with the production and mix.
Until the end of time, I promise you, that baby, you will never lose my love.
Then I just used a little bit of compression from the FG Red like we always do. I used a little bit of Saturn to kind of give us a little bit of extra shine and oomph in the low end. And then I just used the LANY. I'm adding a little bit of high mid and like really top end just so it can kind of sparkle up. And then the last thing that I am doing is the Lander mastering. I use this as the final master. I shot it out with Pro L. I shot it out with Elevate. And I really liked what this did. So these are my settings: boosting a little mids, boosting a little highs, boosting a little presence, doing a tiny bit of compression, adding some saturation, and basically just making it loud. And so here's what it sounds like after all of that mix bus, master bus processing.
Until the end of time, I promise you, that baby, you will never lose.
So it really just made everything a little bit more glued together, a little bit louder, a little bit brighter, kind of handled some of those kind of tubby low mids. That's typically what I'm trying to do on my mix bus and my master bus processing. So that is my full look at the session for Never Lose My Love by Landon Austin. If you like the song, go check it out. It is out now. You can click a link in the description. Go show Landon some love. I love getting to work with him. I love all of the artists that we got to reference for this project. So yeah, if you're a fan of, you know, LANY, Fly By Midnight, Loot, Asher Postman, any of those kind of artists that mix 80s with current pop, and then they kind of have some of those indie alternative elements, go check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. But that's going to do it for this tutorial. We will be back next week with another video. Let us know in the comments what videos you want to see from us in 2024. Other than that, I hope you had a really happy holiday and a happy new year. I'm super excited to dive into more content this year for you all. I'll see you soon. Much love. Peace.